for special then work session, or work session then special?
However you want to do it, Mr. Mayor.
No preference here.
Okay, why don't we do the special first then? So let me get that up on screen. And I will call us to order at 7:06 p.m. Members of the council, you have an agenda before you. Are any changes required on that agenda?
None here.
None here, Mr. Mayor.
None here.
I think that Councilmember Mayers, do you have any changes?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No changes.
Okay, that was part of it. Wanted to make sure that I could hear you. So that's all good. Okay, hearing that that no changes are required. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion of the agenda? I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon is not present. Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Richardson is not present. Is that correct? Apparently not. And Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Oh, excuse me. I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? Somebody's turn signal on? Hearing no public comments, we will move on to legislative action items. Legislative action item number 1 is a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2020-OR-10 regarding the CARES Act funding.
Yes, I can provide the council with some more information on this
Thank
item.
you.
So
Thank you.
the staff is asking that the mayor and council adopts emergency ordinance 2020 ordinance OR-10 so that we can secure the CARES Act funding that we previously spoke about in the legislative meeting. On May 6th, the town received notification from Prince George's County that we were going to be allotted $441,000 to help manage our pandemic relief through either purchase of personal protective equipment or through programs that helped residents that were suffering from the pandemic. So yes, on May 22nd, staff submitted to the county our spending plan, which included the programs that we'd already started, like the farmers market dollars, the protective equipment that we'd already purchased, police overtime, as well as things that we were planning on building and working on in the future, including a residential rent and mortgage relief program.
Can we please get who the speaker is at this point?
The speaker is Ryan Chilton.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Should have announced myself. So yes, yes, we had a plan submitted to the county for both our current and future expenditures for pandemic relief. And on June 11th, we received a response back from the county stating that our plan was approved and that they would like us to sign an agreement. I'd like to share on my screen now a brief, not sure if that's, going to work on our. Are you able to see a chart, or is it still on the agenda?
Still
It's on the agenda.
Okay. I'm going to switch that then. I made a brief chart here that just shows the allocation of the dollars in general. So for the most part, they've gone to programs that help feed and are going to help our residents with rental and mortgage relief. But we also have programs that will help that'll help our staff continue to do their jobs, like the telework laptop computers and additional funds for police overtime for when police help with events that give out food and things of that nature. So these are the items that we submitted to the county that we're going to be spending on, with a major focus on residential rental and mortgage relief and the farmers market dollar program.
And these items can be adjusted mid-phase if necessary.
That is correct. The county included in the response letter to us that we would be able to amend our plan if we see that there's a need for it.
Okay, and this ordinance has not been previously introduced, so we're going to be introducing finding a state of emergency and voting on it tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh, actually, Mr. Mayor, if I may, this is John
Yes.
Listician.
Yes.
We will be introducing the ordinance this evening. It'll be voted on next week.
Okay, so this is just introduction.
This is just introduction. It would be voted on next week and become effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is simply a timing issue. The faster we can sign the documents and get them back to the county, the sooner the town is able to apply for the money, and that our residents would then benefit from the money for these various programs.
So we have a 1 week delay. I believe the technical definition of the emergency ordinance is same evening. Isn't that correct?
I'll double check the charter, sir. I believe it becomes effective the same evening it's voted on, but I believe the introduction and voting are still
Okay, so it's the
still
immediate.
separated.
It's the immediate
Yes.
effectiveness that's the issue. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so would someone like to introduce emergency ordinance 2020-OR-10 regarding the CARES Act funding?
As soon as it pulls up, I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor. There we go. Mr. Mayor, if I may, please.
Please.
Excuse me. By the Council of the Town of Riverdale Park, Emergency Ordinance 2020-OR-10. This is an emergency ordinance concerning CARES Act funding. This is an act passed by the U.S. Congress and signed into law by the President. This is for the purpose of authorizing the Town of Riverdale Park to enter into a certain FY 2020-2021 agreement for coronavirus relief funds in Prince George's County, Maryland, in order to accept funds under that agreement from the county government for federal coronavirus relief under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, known as the CARES Act, authorizing the town manager to execute and deliver the agreement on behalf of the town and generally related to the town receiving federal grant funds for coronavirus relief efforts. If you would like, Mr. Mayor, I can go on and to the explanatory.
As you see fit, I believe that you provided enough information for introduction, and I presume that this will be advertised by town staff, and the draft will be available on the town's website. So I think that it's enough, but if you want to speak more, you definitely have more time.
I will just touch on the three main points in that the emergency ordinance would authorize the town of Riverdale Park to receive federal grant funds under the CARES Act in an amount of $441,000. And it authorizes the town of Riverdale Park to enter into the agreement for such purpose. And it authorizes the town manager to execute and deliver the agreement on behalf of the town. I'll leave it at that, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. The next item on the agenda is a motion to designate a.
Mr. Mayor, if your indulgence here, I just want to make a couple of points here regarding the CARES Act, and I'm all for that, but I want to just ask, will there be, what is the qualifications? And I think that needs to be when we get to the legislative part next week, Tuesday, excuse me, that as far as the qualifications for these relief CARES Act funds be a part of that legislative body so that we can review that information. And also, I would add on there for our seniors as well, the seniors in our community, if we can add a relief funds for those citizens that we have in the community, I think that will be a best effort as well from this point. Thank you.
So that should definitely be discussed between now and next Monday. I believe that I know that the Farmers Market Dollars program is benefiting seniors, and I know the residential rental and mortgage relief will also benefit the seniors if you have specific spending. But this is the plan that we submitted and that was approved by the county. And so if we change things too much, then we're going to have to resubmit, but we can do that. And I don't know that the town has yet fleshed out exactly how the residential rental and mortgage relief program will proceed. Is that correct, Mr. Lustician?
It's in cooperation with the Prince George's County Department of Social Services.
Okay.
And so they would actually be administering and then sending us qualified individuals, and then we would be cutting the checks.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, so this was already presented to Prince George's County as far as these are the areas where we would be allocating the funding to be spending for the CARES Act?
That's
Yeah.
correct, and they approved this plan as being, they had a legal screening, and they confirmed that they believe that all of these spending categories are appropriate.
Okay, and so did the council have any input as far as what the town plan focuses were before previously sending this letter out?
Yes, we've discussed the broad strokes of this plan certainly at several meetings now.
Okay, and obviously I was not in attendance for those meetings.
I did not. I would have to look at my notes to see whether you were in attendance. I know we've been discussing these for quite a while.
All right, so it is where it stands, and these are the items as far as the town focuses were, and this is what is approved by Prince George's County. I would just like to see what the criteria is for the qualifications for getting these funds. And the reason why I'm asking that is because we know how intrusive and how lengthy the questions are when filling out for grant application funding. It's almost very frustrating to the point where you just want to say to forget about it. So if we're offering these type of reliefs, then let's try to make the process as seamless as possible and as user friendly as possible. That's all I'm stating.
Okay. Well, I can tell you for the long pole in this spending plan, the residential rental and mortgage relief, that the county put up that program, and that they have, from what I've heard, the program has been very successful. There have been a large number of applicants, and their funding for that program ran out quickly. And so we will be taking the candidates that have been pre-screened, or some that have been pre-screened, others may come along, and providing funding for the ones that have already gone through that process. But my understanding is that the process was fairly streamlined, and they were focused on ensuring that the recipients had an actual need, and the overwhelming majority of them did. And as you might expect, with all the loss of of work that people have had. And so that's the that's where we are right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so that's been introduced. And if you have, as I said, Councilman Henry, if you have any concerns, then we can definitely discuss possible adjustments between now and next next week. And by the way,
Okay.
just to be clear, the meeting next week is on Monday and not on Tuesday. The Monday calls that were interfering with the meetings have been shifted to every other week, and next week could go back to the usual time, so it will be on Monday.
And will that be going forward? We'll be back in the Monday schedule?
I hope so.
Okay.
If we aren't, then it's because something has gone badly at the county level and they have spun back up their calls to be on a weekly basis.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so next item, motion to designate the chair of Board of Code Appeals. If you read the background document, the Code Appeals section of the code requires that the council designate a chair, and we did not do that when we set up membership. And so I would like to, at this time, recommend as the chair, Ms. Sarah Billington, who has been an active member of the board. And I sent her qualifications, her resume around last night via email to those who saw the email. And I can provide a brief summary, but she has immense educational experience and including masters in architectural engineering and construction management from Carnegie Mellon, Bachelor of Architecture from my own alma mater, Rice University, and I can tell you that is a very tough program. Bachelor of Art in Architecture and Art History, LEED accreditation, and received an Excellence Award for a construction project over $50 million. I think she's highly qualified to be the chair of this board. And so that is my recommendation. And I would appreciate a motion to approve her.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Sarah Billington as the chair for the Board of Code Appeals.
Thank you, Councilman Lingua. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Was that Councilman Lingua?
This is Councilman Foe.
So thank you.
I can't second my motion, Mr. Mayor.
I understand. So made by Councilman Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there further discussion of the designation of Ms. Billington as the chair?
I said I can't speak to
Briefly,
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman. Go ahead.
briefly, Mr. Mayor, having read over the CV of the candidate, I came to the same conclusion. I think this is someone who is very able to fulfill the requirements and the duties of being chair. And
Thank
I'm
you.
fortunate that, as we are, I think we're fortunate that she is stepping up to fill this position and to serve in such capacity.
I agree. Okay. Is there further
Yeah,
discussion?
I appreciate the nomination from the council members. Is this a paid billet position or is this a voluntary position?
This is a volunteer position.
Volunteer position. Wow. Well, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Has Councilmember Dixon arrived, or is she still stuck on work? Sounds like she is not here. I'll bring up the participants so I can track who's here a little bit better. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Henry,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Richardson does not appear to be here also. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you. I'm going to provide a little bit of context for the next two legislative action items just before we get there. There is a technical mistake about the dates on the ordinances that were previously introduced and passed, and they will in fact expire at midnight tonight. And so we need to reintroduce and repass them with appropriate dates. And that's the reason for this. There's an item on the work session agenda that may make this point moot, should we decide to move forward in that direction. But we have to get to the end of this entire process in one way or another. And so this is one of the pathways to take it. And so it was my suggestion and the suggestion of staff that we go with the introduction of these two here. And should we decide in the course of the work session and next week to go with the work session discussion item number 2, reversion of legislative action items 3, 4, and 5 from the June 2nd meeting, then we will simply not move forward with those ordinances next week.
Mr. Mayor, are we on special legislation, or have we moved to work session agenda items at this point?
We're on special legislative. I'm just explaining that that these are happening here in a particular way, and that it may be based on decisions that we make that we actually never pass these ordinances, but we have to get them back on the docket one way or another in order to have options next week. So that's the reason that I suggested reintroduction of them.
Okay, so are we at the closure of our special legislative meeting?
No, sir. There are 2 more legislative action items, and then there's unfinished business, new business, and adjournment.
Okay, I'm only seeing from the legislative meetings that I have received, I'm only seeing 2 items on there. I saw the motion to adopt the emergency ordinance 2020 OR 10, and I see the second item is a motion to designate chair of board of code appeals. And there are 2 more items, as you're stating.
Yes, the agenda was updated this afternoon. I'm not sure if you checked your email since then. I believe it was updated around 2 o'clock or so.
Okay, so what are the 2 items that I'm missing here? I'm missing item number 3.
So item number 3 is introduction of ordinance 2020-OR-11 regarding organizational structure of town government. And number 4 is introduction of ordinance 2020-OR-12 regarding town personnel manual. These are legislation that is identical except for the technical issues to items 4 and 5 from the June 2nd legislative meeting.
Okay, and there is I know I received a call from the town clerk this afternoon.
Yes.
These items to the special legislation, I was not clear on that. I was still under the impression that these items will still be on the work session. So, okay.
They will still be on the work session. And so
Okay.
we will discuss them at length at the work session. But at the moment, these are just going to be introduced so that we have options next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Mm-hmm.
Would someone like to introduce one or both of these ordinances?
Mr. Mayor, I will, if I may.
Yes, please.
I'd like to introduce, pardon me. I would like to introduce ordinance 2020-OR-11. And this is an ordinance concerning organizational structure of town government. And it is for the purpose of modifying the civil service departments in the town of Riverdale Park government, modifying unclassified positions in the town of Riverdale Park government, providing for certain severance payments for certain unclassified employees under certain circumstances, and generally relating to the organizational structure of the town of Riverdale Park government. And in doing so, we will be repealing and reenacting with amendments Chapter 2, Administration, Sections 2-4 and 2-6 of the Code of the Town of Riverdale Park, January 2008 revision as supplemented.
Thank you, Councilman. Would someone like to introduce ordinance 2020-OR-12 regarding the town personnel manual?
I will, Mr. Mayor. I would like
Thank
to,
you.
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilman.
I would like to introduce ordinance 2020-OR-12 concerning revisions to the town personnel personnel manual. Sorry, I'm trying to read and do this at the same time. For the purpose of amending sections and definitions A3, E-2A, H1, H2, Article 1, Section 1, K-1, K-7, L1, and L4 of the Town of Rhodale Park Personnel Manual to define certain terms, prohibit certain contracts of employment, alter the authority and procedures for certain performance assessments and discipline, alter certain provisions relating to voluntary departures from the town employment, and generally relate to the town personnel manual.
Thank you, council member. Much appreciated.
All right, Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question here.
Yes.
On OR 11 and OR 12, with this new introduction with the special edge now, does that mean that it has to be, will these two ordinances be reintroduced again at the next legislative meetings?
They will be presumably voted on at the next legislative meeting.
They'll be voted on. So in other words, from the last meetings that we had when they were voted on, and got the favorable nod from the mayor and the council, this is now a mute call, and so now it has to be reintroduced because of a dating controversial. Correct?
Yes, there is a technical issue with the legislation as approved and the timing, and because of that, then the legislation that was approved at the June legislative meeting is going to be expiring at midnight tonight, and so if we wish to have that legislation in place, we have to reintroduce and repass it.
Okay, I'm clear. Thank you.
Okay, are there any items of unfinished business? Are there any items of new business? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Third. I will do a roll call vote for the motion to adjourn. Councilmember Dixon is still not, Councilmember Dixon has arrived. Councilmember Dixon?
Hi, apologies for my tardiness. Yay for the adjournment.
Thank you. Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Henry?
Aye.
Is Councilmember Richardson arrived? I don't see her on the list anywhere, so I'm going to assume not. Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 5-0-1. We are adjourned at 7:34 p.m. Okay, that brings us to the work session. And the work session is, of course, a generally less formal meeting. And so I will simply call this to order. And there's the agenda. Are there anything that needs to change that you see at this time? Silence?
No, it looks fine to me.
Okay. Okay, then let's move forward. I'm going to provide a very short mayor's report, and it is mostly good news. As I think everyone knows, the county entered phase 2 of post-COVID relaxations today, or is it tomorrow? And I'm losing track of what day of the week it is. And the reason for that is that the numbers are looking much better. And even in our own zip code, where I've been very carefully tracking the numbers, We are down to a very small number of diagnoses per day, sort of single digits, 1 or 2 diagnoses per day, and this is very good news. And I encourage everyone to continue the good work of social distancing and wearing masks in order to sustain this and avoid a second wave. But I'm heartened by this, and I am very proud of the residents of the town for working so hard and making so many sacrifices in order to make this work. So that concludes my mayor's report for today. If there are any questions, please go ahead and hit me with them. Otherwise, we'll move on to the town manager's report.
I have no questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and residents. Just a few items this evening. One, the staff team is working continually on our plans to address the new normal, whatever that may be. So we are looking to improve service delivery during this time. One of the initiatives that we're going to launch will be a scheduled virtual meeting for residents to be able to voice concerns about specific topics as it relates to different departments. So we're just trying to expand our outreach. As you'll learn next week during the finance report, our conservative projections on revenue for the current year that ends today have outperformed, meaning that we have received more revenue than what we had budgeted. Our revenue is actually held up fairly strong during these first several months of COVID. So we've seen some reductions. That's to be expected because we continued the due dates for various business-related items until September 30th. That was something the council voted on back on, I believe it was March 28th. But in terms of our overall revenues, we're strong. And I want to thank the leadership team in front of the council and the community for their work in reducing expenditures in these last few months. And so the two combined will give us a healthy surplus that'll put us on good footing as we start this new fiscal year. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, can I ask a question just to follow up on some conversations you and I have had?
Yes,
I know the overall budget numbers or revenue numbers came in roughly where expected, but were there dips in some areas? I know that the speed camera revenues were coming out a good bit higher than had been anticipated.
Yes, speed camera revenue, we had it budgeted about 530,000, and we're at that today. But we have 2 more months of revenue collection. So we will outperform there. Where we revised our estimates were, for example, in our share of income tax. We had moved our share of income tax down, thinking that unemployment and that would have an impact. It hasn't. As of today,
Wow.
We received about 600,000 for the year. And Mr. Jones just informed me this morning that he received notification of another 108,000 coming in. So it actually puts us where we originally projected a lot of the revenues in terms of our estimated actuals when we did the budget the first time, if you will, and where we thought we would land. We're landing more along that line than we did with our revised estimates, where we lowered our expectations of revenue. We're actually realizing revenue.
Okay.
And I think that helps us should we experience a double dip, if you will, of economic turmoil caused by COVID-19. It positions us well to have more in reserves.
I definitely agree. My conversations with people at the state level indicate that the state is looking at budget cuts well over $1 billion. So that's going to hurt us. I know that our highway user revenue for next year will be down just because people haven't been driving so much. So I think it's good that we're going into next fiscal year with a solid surplus to help us out. So that's best news we can have. Okay, are there other questions for the town manager?
If I have one, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
Mr. Lestitian, I'm curious, as the staff goals runs on a calendar year, and I know that a massive, beyond all proportions, monkey wrench was thrown into that that document with the pandemic. I am curious as to how it is progressing, and or has staff looked at modifying the goals for the calendar year?
We will be modifying the goals for the calendar year. And it's my hope that we would get a revised document published to the council by the end of July.
Okay.
Because we have lost the last three and a half months. And so that set us back on quite a few initiatives that we were hoping for. And we're still going to be busy with COVID in the months ahead. So we are having to reshuffle things to balance workload. And but I think you'll have a new document by the end of July that will reflect not only the revised goals, but things that we accomplished during this time.
Okay.
I think that adjusting a staff goal plan in the face of such a catastrophe as this is completely understandable. And I'm not sure that I would say you've lost 3.5 months. I would say that things did not go as you expected in a big way for 3.5 months, and you refocused staff efforts to address the issues that were most important.
Well said, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the town manager's report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, if I may ask a question to the town manager, Mr. Lestitian.
Mm-hmm.
What is your projected plan now that the state of Maryland is in phase 2? How do you project us reopening the government, our government, in the likings of services being 50% restored on a weekly basis going forward? And also, what is your projection for bringing the council back to the dais so that we can have these meetings convened publicly to be reduced at some type of level of 50%, given the restrictions and the preventions of COVID-19, of wearing masks and safe distancing. I yield to you.
Thank you very much for that question, Council Member. I'll answer your second question first. That's up to the direction of the mayor and council when you want to reconvene, provided that such meetings are permitted by the county executive's order and the governor's order in terms of meetings. So if public meetings are permitted under those orders, then it would be up to the mayor and council to decide when they want to reconvene in person, and the staff team will do what we need to do to support that. In terms of our plans, the leadership team is continuing to have discussion on that. Under the orders, as I understand them today, they're still encouraging individuals who are able to telework to telework. And so there's still a big encouragement for that to happen. The police, obviously, the dispatchers are working every day. We have our public works crew back to full-time schedules, although we adjusted their schedules to have 2 shifts so people can better socially distance. We still have our rules in effect in terms of 1 vehicle, 1 person. So there's lots of steps that we've taken to minimize risk. And in terms of opening town hall to in-person business, we're having discussions about that. I just spoke with many of my counterparts last week. Some cities and towns near us are closing through September. Others are starting to try to open to bring staff back in the building, but not necessarily see the public until mid-August. So I plan to solidify a recommendation, and I'll present that to the council in terms of when we would invite our residents back into town hall to conduct in-person business. I do not have that recommendation this evening, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I would like to make a suggestion, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Certainly.
Thank you. So I know at town hall there is a reception area where there's a counter, and where we present our applications for adding a deck or a driveway or whatever the application need may be, and that's where we present our cases to the town. Is it possible that we can have a plastic visor set up right there? Because we cannot continue on in the same process where we're not staffing our town. Everybody is working remotely. I understand a rotational basis, whereas we're screened and then we work on a rotationary basis, blue team, gold team, if you will, and but we do rotate, and we do have staffing there to cover needs of citizens that do have requirements that needs to be addressed by a live person, and that is my concern. How are we abating these services going forward? Are we making any implementational plans to say, okay, this may be the very normal going forward? We may have to start thinking about provisions, and how are we, looking forward to the future to saying, hey, if this is going to be the scenario, and this could very well be the scenario until next year summer, God's willing, and the creek don't rise, but we could be in that scenario. So I'm thinking more of, okay, we currently have a Dropbox right now. How expeditiously are those responses being looked at? Are they being looked at on a daily basis, a weekly basis? And I know I shift gears from the visor, from the counter to the Dropbox out there in town hall. But, those are issues that concerns me and concerns my constituents. And I'd like to see a more, if you will, expeditious way ahead forward in bringing those services back to some type of level, even if it's just a 50% level of services. I yield. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Council member and everyone on the call. So Ms. Lewis and I had a discussion with an architect that's working on the municipal center project. And the architect is designing a barrier for that front counter. We also are looking to have a kiosk installed in the lobby area. So folks would be able to, if they enter town hall, they'd be able to have a contactless interaction with us if they're able to type into a computer, they'd be able to do that there. We obviously are trying to minimize spread by reducing risk. We've had discussions among the leadership team members about the possibility of some daytime hours and perhaps even evening hours or Saturday hours. So if we're going to have less hours, maybe we can have hours that are more convenient to the residents. Ms. Barnes, towards that end, is putting together a survey where we plan to survey the community to find out what hours would best meet the needs of our residents. And then we would design our plans towards that end. We are, as a matter of routine, when I mentioned that everyone that can work remotely that doesn't mean people don't visit the office. We currently have one person who visits the office at any given time. We're not open to the public, but all the work is being done. all the telephone lines are mobile twin. So if someone calls any extension, then that person is working remotely, the phone automatically rings on their cell phone. So I think we have a pretty good system in place in terms of that. Where we're missing, frankly, is where if we have a resident that is not connected, either by telephone or through the internet, and needs walk-in service, that's the area where we're currently missing, sir. And so we are going to try to get a better understanding of what the community needs in terms of hours, and we will roll out that plan. And I really appreciate your insight, sir.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you have a draft, Mr. Mayor, if I may, if
Please.
I have any more time left on this subject matter. Mr. Lefishin, it sounds like you have a draft way ahead forward as to reintroduce or reconstitute staffing for the town of Riverdale Park. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I don't have a draft that I can present this evening, but it's something that I and members of the leadership team have been talking about for about 3.5 or 4 weeks. And as soon as we have that figured out, we will share that with the mayor and council.
Okay, and do you have an estimated time when that might be available for us to get a first read on that?
It'll be sometime during July, sir. I don't have an exact date for you.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much.
Of course. I will, I'll just mention that my day job, the one that pays the mortgage, that we are anticipating that staff will start to return in approximately 3 weeks. So that's and that's assuming that nothing bad happens between now and then with the pandemic. So I think that the town is sort of, and that's going to be, the initial is going to be between 10 and 25% of staff will be back initially. And so, and there are no plans beyond that at this time. So I think that the town is similarly moving forward cautiously, which I think is appropriate, as we do want to prevent spread. Okay, are there any more questions for the town manager?
I have a question. I would be curious to know, I don't know if the town manager is keeping track, but I'd be curious to know how many residents have needed something where they needed an in-person, assistance and we weren't able to provide it. So I guess just piggybacking off of Councilman Henry's question, and I think one, if we're going to evaluate when, what kind of staffing we provide once we get back to a new normal, how often are we being asked for something that requires in person that we aren't able to satisfy by a drop box or something else?
I can't answer that. I am aware of one circumstance in the last 3.5 months where a resident, and we learned this, Ms. Lewis did, that a resident had wanted to stop by and request a new tote, a trash tote, and the person did not have connectivity to the internet. Did not call, but did not have that connectivity, and was speaking with Ms. Lewis. And so we are redoubling our efforts so that residents know that many services can be handled by telephone. We did add to our website that we can, if any resident that wants to meet with staff that has connectivity, that we can set up Zoom meetings. And so, but that's the only one that I'm aware of where a resident believed that they needed to interact in person and was concerned that they could not make their request.
Okay, thanks. I just think that, that should be taken into consideration. I know the mayor said that you guys are starting back in August for your day job? Is that what you?
No, it's about 3 weeks. It'll be late July.
Oh, 3 weeks. Okay. For mine, we're not going back for the rest of the year.
Wow.
So I think it varies. And that's just, that's for safety reasons and because we're able to, we seem to be able to do it efficiently and satisfying the needs of whomever remotely. And so, and I thought that was very thoughtful that, it's one thing to, want to be back to normal, but just for the safety of the employees and also just taking a sense of whether they feel comfortable coming back. But also, is it truly necessary? Are we not able to satisfy the needs of constituents by having, a telework schedule until there's something? Because I just don't think we need to inadvertently subject anyone to even a risk, an unnecessary risk, if it's just to get back to a new normal. And the demand isn't there.
I agree completely. I'll mention that at my job, those who can do their work from home, many people cannot. It's actually impossible for a variety of very technical reasons that people can't do their work from home, some legal reasons also. And but those who can work from home are expected to be working from home indefinitely. There's no plan to bring people back who can do their work from home until after till I think maybe phase 4, and we're talking not even planning time for phase 2. So phase 1 is going to be for my work is going to be purely those who have to come in, and they're going to be in only for the minimum amount of time that they need to get their work done, and they'll take anything that they can do at home, back home.
So, Mr. Mayor, may I please just say something on
Sure.
these regards? Thank you. So I am a mission critical personnel for my job, and ever since COVID struck, I've been working nonstop. It's just been my routine. I meet the category of staying at home because of my age, but because I don't have ailments, praise be and thank God, that prohibits me from going to work, i.e., diabetes, heart stroke, or any of these ailments. And I'm not boasting. I'm just saying, thank God for that. So I am able to go to work. We do have circumstances where people are of age, 60, and they do have ailments, and they're allowed to work, telework. But there's a questionnaire that we go through that identifies, if you meet the first requirement, 60, and if you have any, health issues that would, allow you, well, that would indicate that you would be under one of those categories of vulnerabilities, if you will. So we meet that criteria, but then we have a rotation basis where we have different teams that come in and we quarantine for a 2 weeks period because, we know that this virus is active and we know it occurs within 2 to 3 days, and it can happen to anyone, but we do quarantine and we do take temperatures as we come into work. I don't want to see us continue on into the same process. I want to see us evolve from this, and this is the United States of America, the greatest country in the world. I want to see us evolve, and I want to see us evolve cautiously and in consideration of of people that have health issues, and we protect those individuals. But I want to see our government open back up. This is the United States. This is the commerce of the world, and we cannot continue to live in a closed-knit environment. And so this is my concern. While I'm cautiously optimistic and I hear public safety because, that is my premise. I have that to the forefront of my mind, but we need to find a way so that we can open government in a cautious, measurable manner, that we can have people come to our town and conduct business that people normally wouldn't be able to, i.e. senior citizens who don't know how to log on to the website and navigate through, the sessions, and it's frustrating. It can be even frustrating for me, and I'm sure it's frustrating for you sometimes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Lestitian also, for the members of the council. I'm sure it's all frustrating for us. And sometimes we need that, we do need that human touch, that human relationship. That we cannot eradicate that or get rid of that. That's what we're all about. That's our fundamentals. We cannot get rid of our fundamental base of not being humanistic, where we cannot see and touch and not right now touch, but we cannot see and interact with a human being. We have to find a way going forward, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
We do, and it's all a matter of risk and reward and balancing risk and reward. And so I believe that
Yes, I agree with that.
So I believe that Mr. Lestitian is working to establish how much reward there is, how much people need to get into town hall to see someone, to interact with someone in face-to-face manner or socially distanced face-to-face, and will establish staffing in order to cover that need. But just having people there who do not need to be there, who are not meeting the needs of the constituents of our constituents, I think that would be a risk without reward. And so we're just trying to find that balance. And I agree that we do need to start. I have some hope, although it's waning a little bit, that we might see a vaccine as soon as the very beginning of 2021, 6 months or so from now. But until we know what happens, I don't know that we can. And we have seen in many countries, in many states, that that people have reopened a little bit too fast and are now seeing a massive spike in cases. And in particular in South Korea, which seemed to have everything under control, they attempted to restart school. They saw an immense spike in cases, and so they shut down the schools again. And so we want to move forward cautiously. I would prefer, if we can do it, to move forward in a single direction so that we move forward, we're successful, we continue to expand, we get more flexible, we get more back to normal, rather than having to backtrack from having a bad situation. But I agree, we have a risk, we have a reward, and we have to balance that in order to meet the needs of our constituents.
Okay, roger that.
Okay, any other questions for the town manager? Hearing none, let's move on to council, committee, and ward reports. Councilmember Dixon, Ward 1.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a ward or committee report.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Foe, Ward 2.
I'll keep my remarks brief. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to our sustainability committee, chaired by Laura Katz. Assistant Sarah Batto has been a tremendous addition to that team. We just submitted our sustainability application to Sustainable Maryland. I know I'm very proud of the work that they have completed. It's been a labor of love. They are incredibly engaged and involved. They make our community better. They make me better. And I am just tremendously proud to consider myself a member of that remarkable team. Laura, you have been our inspiration for years now. And I just want to take the time on behalf of the town to say thank you for your participation. I'd also like to say thank you to staff for assisting us in the completion of that. I couldn't be more proud of the work that we have completed as a team, and I'm thankful to our leadership for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe.
Thank you, Councilmember Fo. Anything else? Or is that your report?
That's my report for the day. Thank you.
Very good. Councilman Lingua, Ward 3.
I'll keep it very brief, Mr. Mayor. Kudos to Councilmember Fo for partial theft of the thunder there for the sustainability team. Just wanted to say thanks to also add to that list, adding to that, I was going to bring up, everything's getting, well, to all the members of the sustainability team, including Ms. Azevedo, who's been helping out, as well to the staff, being that's the 30th of June. Happy New Year, fiscal New Year, that is. And hats off to them for navigating the last little over a quarter, the last 4 months, with the pandemic monkey wrench that has been thrown into the works. With everything that's been going on, it's really been a lot to contend with, and you've done it well. That's across the board, and it's really something that hopefully some student somewhere at University of Maryland or somewhere else that's doing government studies does a case study on. So my hat's off to you.
Thank you, Councilman Lingua. And I'll add my thanks to both the staff and the sustainability team. Please forgive me for missing that in my report. Ward 4, Councilman Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, look, I do this work for free. This is something that this calling, as I see it, it's a calling that just didn't originate from me being here in Riverdale Park. This is a calling that I had when I was a child, and it's a continued calling that I have to adhere to, and I take it with great stride, and I take it with great pride, and I got to tell you that well, I appreciate everything everyone is doing for the town, but my hat goes off to the police department, because these guys and Assistant Chief Rosa, Chief Dave Morris, they're out here every single day. They're facing these elements, and they're facing these adversities. And, the dispatchers, they're there every single day. And they're responding to your phone calls. They're answering those phone calls, and they're dispatching. They're there for us. And that is so heart-wrenching to me. And I cannot begin to express the amount of passion that I feel for their service and what they're doing, because these are our first responders, really. Right? They haven't shut down. They haven't gone into partial governmental services. They haven't put a mailbox outside to say, hey, put your complaints or your issues in here, and then we'll respond to it when we get around to it, if we do get around to it. So it's my compassion for the police department, it's just it's breathless. It's unlimited, because you've got to say something about these people, because we don't have the EMS in our town, and if you don't recognize these folks for what they're doing here and supporting us and protecting us in these times of a pandemic, what are you saying about yourself? So my hat's off to the police department, the chief, the assistant chief Roser, to the lieutenants, Turner, and all of the sergeants that go along with it. I'm so thankful for them. We had a Father's Day celebration here, and I invited the police to come up here because, hey, they got to eat. And, we did do social distancing, but we enjoyed each other's company so much. And it's very important, very, very important that the police are engaged in our community, because we don't want, to have the stigmatism of our police force not being a part of our community force. And so we have to blend these two together. And when I saw what I saw on Father's Day, I was so touched. I was so touched to see that they came out and we were socially distancing. We had a wonderful time. And, I can't say enough about, the Town of Riverdale Park Police Department. I really can't. I want to also say a shout out to Jessica Barnes. And I will tell you that I've called her a number of times over the month period. And I will say that she's always been responsive. Whenever I call her, she always answers the phone. And I really appreciate that, because that shows me that she is, she takes her job very seriously. So I want to thank her for that. And, Public Works, I haven't seen much of them come around. And I've seen code enforcement come around, but I don't know much of what they're doing and I understand COVID, and I don't want to press the envelope as far as getting people to comply with code ordinance, because I understand, and I'm compassionate about that as well too. But I do want to emphasize that the police department has been outstanding in their effort of providing us the security and the law enforcement that we need for this time. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. I'm just going to pipe up and say that I think your characterization that the general government staff is getting to things that are in the Dropbox when they can. I think that they are actually working very hard to turn that material around as quickly as they possibly can, while still adhering to the various restrictions that have been put in place by Governor Hogan and County Executive also Brooks, and in keeping everyone safe. So I just would like to state that I know that they're working very hard. I know that they, as you have been putting in, as I have been putting in extremely long days in order to move new programs forward and do what is needed for the residents of the town. So just like to throw
I
that
just
out
want
as
to
a
say
comment.
something, if I can.
Yes, please.
I believe that the town manager said that Public Works is staff has been working on a rotating basis, and I just want to voice an appreciation for every single one of the staff members, irrespective of what their job is. Can you close that door for me, please? Irrespective of what their job is, I believe that every single one of our staff members is not only putting in 100%, but 110%. We had numerous calls during this time period where we went over a budget. We were still trying to navigate how to use Zoom and get accustomed to this type of work environment. And I saw it done efficiently and seamlessly. I loathe working in Excel. There are others who love it. I am not one of them. So I admire anyone who can go through each and every one of those cells, articulate to a group of people, some like myself, who cannot always follow, and do it under the most strenuous of circumstances. If you know anyone who has had COVID, or God forbid, know anyone who has passed away from COVID, each and every one of us is working under extremely strenuous circumstances. So I would be remiss if I didn't tag on to what the council member said by not only acknowledging our police department, but each and every single staff member who gets up, who keeps our town running, even when we do not see them. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank
Sure.
you, Councilmember.
Okay, any more comments or questions for Councilman Henry? Councilmember Richardson is absent this evening still, I believe. I don't see her name on the list. Councilmember Mayers, do you have a report for Ward 6?
No, not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to public comments. Are there any public comments? Not seeing any indication of public comments, so let's move on to work session discussion items. Item 1, townwide speed limit reduction to 20 miles per hour. Is there a staff presentation?
Not a full presentation, Mr. Mayor, but the chief is on the call, and so is Director Lewis, if you have questions of them. I presented or prepared the staff memo for this evening and attached to it Chief Morris's staff memo from last June. We are looking for direction from the council, either to prepare the necessary documents to accept the recommendation to lower the speed limit on town roads to 20 miles an hour, or to give us direction to assist you in further evaluating this. If there's different information that specific council members would like to see, we can gather additional information for you. Or if the council is not interested in moving forward, let us know that as well. So we can take it off of the to-do list. So we're just looking for direction this evening. Colonel Morris is here, and again, Director Lewis, should you have any questions.
Council?
I am certainly in favor of this move being made. I think it allows for proper enforcement of speeding throughout the town. I think it allows us to make those moves towards being more pedestrian and cycling friendly as a community. And I think when you look at our evolution as a town, these are things that we want to be. So I think that this is a move made in the best interests of our residents. So I fully support the move to 20 miles per hour within the town.
Thank you, council member. Are there other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, who is introducing this ordinance?
Nothing is being introduced. There's a request for informal feedback from the council on whether to move forward or not. And there will have to...
Who's making the request to in the reduction of speed limit?
So this has been discussed again at multiple meetings over the last year, or maybe a little bit longer than that even, as a possible thing that the council can do. And I believe that Mr. Listician is asking whether we would like town staff to move forward on preparing an ordinance on this or not.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, the original recommendation came from Chief Morris.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and is Chief Morris, is he on the line?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to hear what the chief has to say regarding the
Of
reduction to 20 miles.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Councilman Henry, thank you for the question. And I put forth this recommendation in concert with the town manager and Ms. Lewis in response to concerns that we're hearing from our community about the speeding complaints that we have. Frankly, it's one of the primary complaints that we receive in the police department. It's they're we make use of technology where we can with the speed cameras, but I think slowing the speeds down helps us from an enforcement perspective. It also sends a clear message that we are pedestrian friendly in the town, and I stand by that recommendation. I think it would be in the best interest of our community at large from a public safety perspective.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may follow up with a question here to the chief. Chief,
Mhm.
when you say reduction in speeds of 20 miles per hour, would you be using a scan gun to be able to identify what the speeds are?
So what we're recommending, council member, is reducing the speed limits on all town roads to 20 miles per hour. And there are specific state statutes that allow us to also reduce those speed limits from a municipal perspective, even on roads that are under the county's purview, if you will, but yet in the town. So the recommendation is to reduce the speed limit on town roads under our jurisdiction to that 20 mile per hour speed limit. From an enforcement perspective on those areas where the school zones are in place, we continue to operate the speed cameras, and then the other areas would be through radar and pacing and things of that nature. Mr. Lestitian and I have looked at the geography of the town as it relates to schools, and frankly, we're of the general opinion that the majority of roads throughout the town would fall within that half-mile radius of the schools. So it would avail us to being able to use technology to continue to enforce the speed limits, reducing the and reducing the incidents, hopefully, of motor vehicle collisions, particularly those involving pedestrians, which always seem to rise, particularly this time of year.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, with a follow-up question, one last question, if you would, please, sir. So Chief, so as far as the regulatory goes in terms of the speed cameras, will those restrictions be enforced as well too for speed cameras?
So the speed cameras are regulated by state law under Title 21. There are specific requirements as to their operation and specific zones in which they can be operated. The council has taken action previously to identify school zones, and we certainly continue to review that both within the PD as well as with Ivy and Mr. Lestitian to identify other areas that might benefit from the use of that technology.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, I was muted. Are there additional council questions at this time?
Mr. Mayor, I was just saying thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to ask the question.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course. Other council members have questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Just to be clear, we're talking about, you're looking at it in school zones, reducing speed down to 20 miles per hour. Is that correct?
No, sir. The recommendation is to reduce speed limits. I'm sorry, this is the chief, and I realize you asked the question of the mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, I apologize for jumping in, but the
Please jump in.
To reduce the speed limits on all town roads to 20 miles per hour.
Okay. The reason I was asking is because there's one indication that that's what it's about, and then there's another one. There's other language that seems to infer that this is to be during school hours within school zones. Now I know we've chatted about this before, Chief Morris, regarding the amount to which the town is encompassed in one school zone or another, given all the schools that are around us, to the point of, I believe it was 95% coverage of the town. If I remember correctly.
So in the handouts, the last page of the discussion item number 1 handout, there's an overlay showing where the schools are and the range that covers what the school
Yeah.
zone is, the half-mile radius. And from looking at this map, I have not looked at it super carefully. Then the only sections of road that are not covered by a school zone are a small section of the road now known as Campus Drive, and the southern end of Taylor Road in Ward 3. And the rest of the town is entirely within one or another school zones from various schools that are here. And so I believe that, just guessing here, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, that Kenilworth Avenue and East-West Highway will not be affected by this. Those are state roads, and so they will not be affected. I believe that Good Luck Road will not. Is that correct? Campus Drive will not. River Road, I'm assuming, is also a state road that was taken over as part of the Purple Line project, so that will also not be 20 miles per hour. And so everything else, I believe the proposal is to take everything else to 20 miles per hour except for those state roads. So Baltimore Avenue, of course, US 1. Is that correct, staff?
Yes, sir.
What was the question?
I was saying, Mr. Mayor, did you mention Kenilworth Avenue as not a part of the local roads?
Yes, we are preempted by the state in that location. I think that they're willing to cut us a little bit of slack, but it's their road. And so I think we can't set the speed limit there.
Well, it's Route 1 and 4.
Exactly. So East-West Highway, Baltimore Avenue, Kenilworth Avenue, Good Luck Road. I believe that all of these are covered by the state. River Road also are all state roads, and we do not have a say in those.
Okay, thank you for providing the overarching.
And what, Mr. Mayor, what was that you said about the portion of what is now Campus Drive that is within town?
There is a small segment of Campus Drive between starting at Kenilworth and going
Right.
a ways, and that is not covered within the school zones. I don't know what the status of the road there is. I don't know who owns that road, but presumably, if we have jurisdiction, we could set the speed limit to 20 there also.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I believe we can make adjustments, wherever we think is appropriate. If there's some overwhelming issue that would say that we should not keep it at 20 miles an hour, then we should consider changing that. But I think the general principle of 20 miles an hour is what the staff is going to develop. Unless
I would agree with 20-mile-hour restriction. Local streets, absolutely.
Okay.
I admire the goal, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I think one of the areas where that goal is going to be very, very much challenged is the section of River Tech Court, essentially from River Road down to the circle.
Well, that's a question. So if you want to exclude that from the 20 mile an hour, then certainly the council can discuss that as well.
I mean, it's for the time that prior to the closing of River Road right there at the overpass by the College Park Metro for the work that's being done. I would be taking that daily to get to and from to the upper portion of, or the portion of Baltimore Avenue right there north of the downtown College Park area. And times I'd be going through there, trying to maintain a speed of 20 miles an hour and finding people coming up very quickly and then maintaining a close proximity to the rear bumper of my vehicle. Other folks who decided that wasn't where they wanted to be and just decided to just blow around all the same. I think that, if we are to take this on and enact this, one of the things that we may want to consider is how we can approach modifications along that road so as to encourage more of a speed limit of 20 miles an hour. One of the examples I would point to is the road that comes off of Cherry Hill in Montgomery County that leads to the new hospital back there. That was I think it's Pine Orchard, if I remember right, drive. I can check again on the name, but prior to the hospital going in, the road essentially serviced the service for the Orchard Park shopping center to the back of those buildings. Besides being that, it made for a lovely back stretch to allow folks to get over to I was trying to say Orchard Park, or gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of the street off there that goes back that way. It was essentially, it allowed people not having to go up all the way up Cherry Hill and then make a left down if they wanted to get over towards 29 or in that area or to the office park. Since the hospital has gone in, Montgomery County did a substantial amount of work in terms of putting in bike lanes on both sides, with marking out the lanes, making that roadway single lane each direction. Previously, the road was wide enough that essentially you could have two-lane traffic going each way. So I think if there are ideas that we could incorporate from over there and see that if they could be applied to Rivertech Court, that might help in achieving that goal of vehicular traffic traveling at a rate of 20 miles per hour along that stretch.
I completely agree that we want to change the feel of that street so that people find it easier to obey the speed limit we're proposing to put in.
Mr. Mayor, could I just address a couple of issues as it relates to Rivertech?
Of course.
So first of all, thank you, council member, for the for your comments. And I agree that roadway modifications and engineering issues are always considerations. We talk about the theories of the E's with education and engineering, with enforcement being the last component. But I would be remiss if I didn't share with the members of the council and with the community the number of complaints that we receive regularly about the speeding on Rivertech, and in particular the issues that we've had with these pop-up drag racers that show up there, and the evidence is in the burnout skid marks that are burnouts on the along the roadway and behind some of the buildings, to include College Park Academy. So I've received these complaints regularly from our residents that live over in that particular area. And I will state without any equivocation that that I drive an unmarked car, and I've had individuals pass me on Rivertech at 40, 50, and 60 miles per hour. Only to be gently surprised when there's red and blue lights that come on behind them after they go by me.
Yeah.
And, so I share that with you to say that I think it's important to recognize that one of the motivations to obey the law is enforcement. And once we are able to fully take possession of that roadway, from the county and take responsibility for it, we'll be able to post the speed cameras there, which has already been declared a speed zone. So
Okay.
the easy way to
Okay.
avoid the citation is to come off of the gas pedal.
Oh, I agree, sir. I agree. I understand that, and I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just helping us. I'm thinking we're just trying to find ways at how we can do this that, to the driver even coming through there, they're just looking and seeing what's all going on, and it occurs to them, I need to slow down here.
Yes, sir.
Because I know that the efforts that they made over on Plum Orchard Drive, there where the Adventist Healthcare, the new Adventist Healthcare is, has made a big difference on how you approach driving along that road now. Substantially so. And my suggestion is swing over there and just to see what they have. Or I can just, next time when I go through there, because it's on the way to work, I can put together, a 20-second segment so you get an idea what that experience is, and then share it that way. But they did a lot of work there, and I think there are some elements there that probably could be applied to River Tech Court.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
It's a very busy area.
Mr.
So
Lustician?
as busy as what we have up here. Sorry.
Mr.
go
Mayor,
ahead.
if I may, if the council member is through with his comments or suggestions, if I may, is it possible that we can put some speed bumps in those areas to slow the traffic, the speeding down? Is there, have we done a traffic study to see if we can put speed bumps down in locations that will curb that the increase of traffic?
We have a current process for installing speed bumps, and
I'm aware of that.
I would have to look at that process, but we've certainly not, to my knowledge, started that process. But the overall question is, do we want staff, at this point, do we want staff to develop legislation that would set the speed limit to be 20 miles per hour throughout the town? I think that these ideas of setting up visual cues along River Tech Court and possibly other locations in town that would help people to obey that speed limit is a fine idea. We should consider that in parallel. And but I think that the question now is, do we want staff to move forward? We're not going to get a piece of legislation to introduce next Monday. This is going to be a long process to get this set up. And so the question is, are we leaning in that direction, and they should start that process? That's the big question this evening, as I understand it. Mr. Lustician, you had something you wanted to say about this?
Well, is Miss Lewis still on the line?
She's appears to be.
She's been working with the county reference River Tech Court, and it's my understanding that the county is going to assist the town with the engineering of bike lanes and the engineering of other traffic calming devices as part of the road acceptance. So the staff have had conversations with the county staff regarding different ideas, but we welcome the ideas that Councilmember Lingua spoke about. I'm familiar with that area, sir, and Montgomery County has done a really good job there. So we can definitely incorporate other ideas to try to gain compliance.
Okay.
And yes, and then, Mr. Mayor, we're just looking for direction that the council would like us to do.
I understand.
Yeah. In answer to your question, Mr. Mayor, if I may, yes, I think staff should go ahead with it. But as with any good plan, you're going to need to be able to follow it up. And I guess what I'm just suggesting is ways that we're just able to follow it up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are we done with discussing this item? I believe
I think we have a resident that wants to comment.
Yes, Ryan and Karen McAllister is the name. I'm not sure who is there. So.
Hey, good evening, council members and town staff. This is Karen McAllister. Ryan McAllister will speak next. Thanks for giving us a couple minutes to speak. There's some really good discussion about the lowering the speed limit throughout the town. I wholeheartedly support this this project, this plan. So lowering speed limits, it's an effective, inexpensive way to improve safety on our streets. It reduces injuries and fatalities, specifically pedestrian fatalities. Everyone probably knows that Prince George's County has the highest pedestrian fatalities in the state. That is not something we want to be a leader in. We have to slow cars down. We have to do this. Just a quick, give you an idea. If you're traveling 20 miles per hour and you're hit by a car, a pedestrian has only an 80%. I'm sorry, if a car is going 20 miles per hour, you have a really good chance of survival, about 80%. When the speed increases to 30 miles per hour, it's about 50-50. And once that speed goes up to 40 miles per hour, your chance of survival as a pedestrian getting struck by a vehicle is only 20%. So speed makes a huge difference in whether or not you're going to be injured or you're going to die. I also want to mention that Vision Zero, this is something I'm sure everyone's heard about, this national movement. It started in Sweden and now it's in the United States. And a lot of cities are adopting this approach, right? It's starting from the whole, it's a system-wide approach. You know, engineering is really important, but there's also some of these other things we can do, including education and enforcement. But Vision Zero cities across the U.S. are doing this, exactly what we're proposing. The little town of Riverdale Park, this is what a lot of big cities are doing. They're reducing their speed limits to 20 miles per hour. In fact, DC just did this. Earlier this month, the mayor said all local roads in DC, and so the definition of a local road, right, is it doesn't have a center line. It doesn't have a yellow line in the center. All those roads are going to be 20 miles per hour. There's a bunch of other cities, Seattle, Portland, and such that are doing this. So I think it's a great idea. River Tech Court, oh my gosh. Of course, we live right by it. Like Chief Morris said, I'm driving and I don't know how many times some jerk has decided to pass me, and it's only one lane, and it's so infuriating. So we have to narrow that road. We have to calm that road. I think several people have pointed out some really great traffic calming ideas, including bike lanes. I mean, our community is so many people bike here, and now with COVID, so many more. Lots of people who you wouldn't have seen on a bike are on a bike now. We have a lot of great trails. I think we need to make more of our roads bike friendly. We could put a protected bike lane. It'd be the first in the town. Actually, it'd be the first in the county. So yeah, I would, I'm glad that the county and the town are partnering on that. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and he's going to add a few. Oh, and then we have to pair this with enforcement. Definitely, I support the speed cameras around the school zones. That is a really effective way to get people to slow down. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. McAllister. Mr. McAllister?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. Appreciate you allowing me to speak tonight. As you can see, this is an issue that we 110% support by the police chief. I've actually been discussing with the police chief last week, and then I was made aware of this after an incident had occurred within the town limits on a local street. Luckily, it was not a town resident, but it was a town resident's pet. So the issue does affect town residents quite greatly because there are a significant amount of local town roads. In this case, you know, the effect of the crash, because no one wants to call it an accident, these are crashes, you know, could have affected kids that play on our local streets. So if you want more information, certainly the police chief will probably can provide you some more what our discussions were of the incident. But this is a really effective tool to do that. One of the things that I saw through the staff report information was how much the town limits are covered by the distance from the schools. I would agree that over 95%, I'm sure it's probably almost closer to 98% of the town limits are covered by the half-mile distance from a school. That is really critical because we regularly see with College Park Academy right across from us, kids walking and biking. And as the town's growing, with the park station and other areas that are being redeveloped and the vacant lots are being developed as the town is growing in population, so will the amount of people who walk and bike and will be a part of this initiative that the town's taking on. And so this would be the first step. And then looking forward, I think the next step would be to then work with the local and state agencies. It's great. Avi has been doing an excellent job working with county DPWT and their engineering staff and looking at options and tools and what we can do. And, you know, as you all know, many of the roads are state highway, and there is definitely a lack of interest to effectively remediate some or mitigate some of these issues for town residents. I regularly cross the east to west highway to get from one side of the town to the other. Just walking, biking, taking my dog for a walk, and that's a very hard area to navigate. Regularly, enforcement actions, you know, the vehicular drivers don't obey. Perfect example was walking across East to West Highway, and actually a big pickup truck went right through the red light. Luckily, we weren't in the crosswalk crossing. So any of these tools, and if this is one that the police chief is proposing, I would encourage you all to take into account, considering the dynamics and demographics of this town, growing in population, being a more urbanized town, as well as the proximity of schools and its residents, and particularly the safety issue, which has been a predominant issue for Prince George's County in the state. And so we'd like to see those numbers get lower, not go up. I had one more or two more items I just wanted to state. One is, you know, there's been a lot of engineering tools talked about when you all were talking about the RiverTech. RiverTech is a drag racing strip. As soon as we get that, there's certainly some modifications to kind of put to light what that road is. That road was built to the county commercial industrial road section. It was made to have actually parking on street on both sides with two outways for driving. And without that parking along the street, that's what makes the roadway so wide. And so the first thing, and there's a number of ways, and I'm sure we can get into that discussion when it happens, reducing the lane widths, because the parking's not there, and it's not necessarily needed or something that we can take a look at as we go forward. But I also hear from the rest of the residents in the town, you know, a number of social media applications like Nextdoor, Facebook, Twitter, residents are talking about town speed limits, and enforcement is a key part of that. Stopping at stop signs, speeding and cut through on our town streets, because we have so many state routes and county routes that cut through our town. Those are major routes where traffic is deflecting off of those routes and going onto local streets and cutting through. And I hear there's a very lengthy process for even starting to establish speed bumps. So if one of the first tools that we can do is look at this, at reducing speeds, it gives the police chief and his force an ability to enforce town speed limits by being able to then write more tickets because people are cutting through at excessive speed limits. Again, we would ask for your support by all the council members and the support for your police chief. Is this an effective enforcement tool? And then we can look at the other options for existing county or local roads for engineering, because I think enforcement and engineering are the two key parts within the town streets. So again, a lot of things are changing with the town. I would hope the town would recognize this with this motion and request by the police chief, and ask for all of your support, because we're 100% support of it. And I believe many of the residents who may not be on this meeting or maybe not be in future meetings don't know about it, but would be in support of it. And we'll be making sure to gather some more support as we go forward as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister. Appreciate
Thank you,
your
Brian.
comments. Want to mention that the bike lane that comes over from Riverdale Park Station and ends mysteriously mid-block is very strange, and I agree that completing that is a priority. Ms. Lewis, can you give us a short description of the negotiations you're having with the county about transfer and traffic calming?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. We've signed the transfer agreement no fewer than 3 times. We think we are approaching, at least the county has recently changed its review and approval process, and there have been some blips as they've tried to implement it. But I'm pretty confident that we'll have an executed agreement before the end of July. And I will add that the staff and DPW&T has already given us a design for a bike lane on Rivertech Court.
Mm-hmm.
We probably want to revisit that with the idea of a protected bike lane. That probably makes some sense there. There's a lot of different types of traffic on that road, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably a safer option for bicyclists.
I would love to have the first protected bike lane in the county. I think that would be a nice feather in our cap to have.
Exactly. I thought that was a good idea too, and a really effective one if we could do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion of this discussion item? Okay, let's move on to discussion item 2, reversion of legislative action items 3, 4, and 5. As mentioned earlier during the special legislative, I believe that 4 and 5 are going to revert themselves at midnight tonight. So, but let's just discuss it as an item where we're revisiting, we are reconsidering the action of the council from the June 2nd legislative meeting where these changes were voted in. Councilman Henry, I believe you asked that this be added to the agenda. So would you like to discuss?
Absolutely, and thank you for that introduction. So I've asked for this to be a repeal action, and because of the date typo, it'll have to be reintroduced at the next legislation meeting. I'm asking that we conduct these type of discussions and these type of legislation actions when government is at least in the quorum of in representation of being there at 5008 Queensbury Road, and that's what I'm asking for, so that we can have an open forum and discuss these things and have the actual public attendees, you know, in a regulatory format, so that we may discuss these items openly, and that's where we're at today, and so that was what I indicated in the last legislative action when we voted on this, and to be found in that the dates were as a typo, and so we're back to square one, where this action is null and void. And so I would like to see any type of legislative action be conducted in a forum where it is controlled and we're safe and we have an environment that we can openly discuss this with the public, and not just be a council and mayor decision, because this affects our town, and this should have input from all of us, not just from the few of us, but from the majority of us. And so that's the reason why I've asked for the repeal of this action, and now it's being a revision of the action. And as so noted in previous discussions with the virtual networking process that we currently have tonight, we did have a numerous amount of issues, and those were my concerns going forward in making any type of legislative action. So it's not just based upon this specific legislative actions, it's based upon all legislative actions going forward. I think that we have to have an open forum to be to have the full candidacy, if you will. And so we have full transparency within the council and within the town, the residents of our town. I want to hear from them. I want to hear what their inputs are on these legislative actions, Mr. Mayor. And so I'm happy to know that tonight that, we at least are at a mute point and this will have to be reintroduced at the legislative action if the council at large decides to go forward with that. And I thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to correct one issue. Legislative action item 3, the charter amendment, was appropriately passed. And so, in fact, as of midnight tonight, we will have a charter and a code and a personnel manual that are not in agreement with each other. And so it is not that it is moot and we are revoting everything. We're revoting the second 2 items, either to bring them into compliance with the charter change that was duly voted in on June 2nd, or we have to go through the process of repealing the charter change, which is a multi-month by state law process. And so that's the decision, is what direction we want to go here. And if I may comment, we just adopted items under the special legislative meeting. So emergency ordinance 2020-OR-10 was introduced. And if we don't want to consider legislation until after we are back physically in 5008, then we can't, it would seem to me that we can't adopt that next week, and we should perhaps just cancel next week's meeting entirely and not meet again until we can physically meet, if that's the policy that the council wants to move forward. But I believe that at the moment, the discussion item is just reversion of the charter change. And so why don't we move forward with council discussion on that particular issue? Do council members have thoughts on that?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please speak.
I know included in the packet was a item put together by staff regarding a timeline of meetings and discussions on this legislation. And I'd like to ask at this time if staff had any comments on that, of things that we should keep in mind about during the time when we were having the discussion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, the staff doesn't have any further recommendation than the recommendations we've previously made. The packet material that Ms. Barnes put together is a complete chronology of the various times that the council considered this. And it's there just to refresh the council members' recollections.
All 176 pages of it. Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Dixon, do you have an opinion?
No, I don't think that we need to hold off on it. We voted on it previously, and this seems like a technical error, not, I don't think it gives rise to opening it up again if we voted.
Okay. Councilmember Foe, do you have an opinion?
I hear what the council member is attempting to say about being at town hall, and I think we all wish that were the case. But we still have to legislate. That's what we were elected for. We have spoken to these issues for months and months and months, and in some cases for years. And I believe that our current situation mandates that we act. So I see no need for us to reconsider any of these, specifically 3. I know that we need to because of a technical error for 4 and 5, but I believe that we've said all that's going to be said on these issues.
Okay. Councilmember Mayers, do you have an opinion?
No, Mayor.
No opinion. So the purpose of the work session is to establish what is going to be on the draft agenda at the following legislative session. And at the moment, I have heard 3 council members say that they are not interested. 1 council member say that he is interested, and 1 council member without an opinion. And I did carefully review the rules of order, because there is guidance in there for preventing the needless rehashing of issues by a legislative body. And it does not apply in this particular case because of the exact structure of our council. So we are allowed to reconsider it, but it's a discouraged practice unless there has been some truly serious missed issue to reconsider legislation that has already been adopted. And as you know, we're seeing tonight, then there are cases where that is true. So for instance, there are these technical issues with the ordinances previously passed that have to be addressed. And we have had other issues in the past. So, you know, dating back years, there have been issues with pieces of legislation that had to be reconsidered for technical issues. But that I believe this is the first time I have heard a suggestion, certainly since I've been on the council, that I can remember. There was a back and forth on a speed limit on some section of town roads that I remember from the very early 2000s, perhaps the late 1990s, where they kept changing it from 15 to 20 to 15 and to 25 and back and forth. But except for that, and that was different councils, different, you know, it would span an election and council members would shift. But except for that, I don't believe that I know of an effort to revert to a previous version of legislation like this before. So I'm going to actually ask for a motion on whether to include this on next week's agenda or not. So can someone please make that motion so that we can have a record of the, usually we have agreement on what should be on the agenda, and here we have distinct disagreement. And so I would like to actually get it on the record as to how.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that recommendation. And I know this is a work session, and I know that motions are usually not accepted on a work session because we're just in discussional basis. But from what I can gather, you know, from 1, 2, and 3, you know, I will not be gathering the support to put this on a legislative action as far as an action item to be further discussed, because I hear negativity coming from all 3. So that being said, I'm going to make a motion to put this on a legislative action anyways, because that's what I'm all about. I want transparency in this town, and I don't agree with how this thing is going forward. And so that is my motion to go forward in putting 4 and 5 back in the legislative action to be further discussed, so that we can discuss this in more intrusive discussion. And I would like to see this being discussed in a public forum where the town at large can have a say-so with this. So I revoke the motion from all the other council members that support the motion to go forward with what was presented and what was passed on in a very in a very convoluted manner, whereas we didn't hear from one council member, whereas I didn't my motion was made, it wasn't supported, and then it was later supported by Councilmember Richardson, and then later voted on, and it was a 3-3 vote. And then, Mr. Mayor, you voted on this to split the vote, and we went forward with this decision to allow the town manager to have full dominance of our town, which I totally disagree with. And so what I don't believe, and it is my consensual belief that I'm not going to get the support of 1 through 3 of the council, okay, 1 through 3 of the council to support my motion to put this on the legislative action. I will still put it forward because this is who I am and it's what I believe. And whether, they take it for what it's worth, I am putting it out there on the line. This is not a good action. And I want it to be on the record that I'm stating this is not a good action. When I look at the police officer and for what their enforcement does, I don't see the town manager walking around here with a badge and an arm and a gun and coming around in my community and meeting out to my constituents and representing who he is and what he does. I see my police officer, my chief, my representatives, my officers, my sergeants, my lieutenants, my commanders coming out here and meeting this community. I don't see it. I don't see where it is necessary, okay, to put forward, whereas the town manager of this town controls the full dominion of this town. One representative totally in control of the town is a bad state. And if the other council members don't see that, again, guess what? You wait and you will see. My words will come to pass. And that's all I got to say.
Is there a
I am going
second?
to
Excuse me.
have
Excuse
to-
me.
no,
Excuse me.
no.
Excuse me.
I can't do this. I cannot. I am getting off of this meeting. This is triggering. It is one thing to have differences of opinions, but when it comes to the point where it's condescending and no one is stopping this, look, opinions are opinions. And I get that we can be divisive and we don't always have opinions, but it's just not okay. It's not okay to just literally berate people. It's not. And I am not going to sit here for it. I'm not.
Good. I'm not getting
Step
condescending.
away.
I'm speaking my mind. I'm telling you the way
I
I'm
need to
feeling.
step away, Mr. Mayor.
Order.
You have a
Order.
forum
I
without me.
feel and what I see going forward in this town.
Mr. Henry, you are out of order. We are still operating under the rules of order and you are out of order.
Okay, I'm out of order.
Councilmember Dixon, you also were speaking out of order. I need a second if we're going to consider the motion to include this item on next week's agenda. Is there a second to Mr. Henry's motion? Hearing none, the motion fails. Let's move on to discussion item number 3, update on partners and economic recovery programs.
Motion failed in a work session. How about that? This is the first time. Good night, everyone.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to respectfully, I get it's a work session. I'm going to respectfully ask that. It's too much. The differing opinions are fine. I get that. But there has to be some order. It's
Yes,
just,
I completely agree. And it was I was trying to let Mr. Henry get to a point where I could break in and say, you need a second to continue discussing this. And I'm sorry I didn't jump in earlier. I will take the criticism.
And I apologize. I didn't think there would be a second, which is why I started to speak, but I should have waited for the silence. But it's just hard to continue to sit through these meetings like this. And I know this is a council meeting, so staff can't speak, but it's offensive. It's just flat out offensive. And it doesn't even bode for a proper work environment.
No, No, and that's the, there's a distinct lack of decorum there. And I apologize for not jumping in sooner. I should have. Shall we move on the agenda?
Ryan, are you prepared to give the council an update?
Absolutely, yes. So,
Does the council wish to take a small recess, say three minutes?
I'm fine.
Yep, I'm fine. 'Cause
I'm fine.
I
I'm
will-
Already 10 after 9.
Yeah, let's get
Okay.
through.
Press on.
I'm glad that that's over.
Okay, let's go on to the update on Partners in Economic Recovery Program then.
all right. Yes, so this is Ryan. I'm going to be providing the update on the Partners in Economic Recovery Program. I'm just planning on talking about a few of the programs that have recently hit some major milestones. Obviously, we have a lot of programs under this blanket, and the other programs we'll be providing updates for those programs in the status and information reports. So the first program that I'd like to talk about is the Farmers Market Dollar Program. We started this program immediately. I think it was the day after the March 25th council meeting, and we've had a lot of success with this program. We have 164 households that are signed up for the program, and that includes that totals 746 different individuals. And the town has, through this program, been able to provide residents who are in need with $31,000 worth of food at the farmers market. So that's a very nice success story there. The farmers market actually is doing so well that they had to expand their footprint a little bit further north. So we hope to see the numbers grow for this program as well. The other program that I'd like to talk about is the Resident Restaurant Town Partnership Program. I have worked with the Yifty, a third-party electronic gift card software company, and we've branded a carry-out cash card, which will be the vehicle to provide customers participating with an additional 20% of purchasing power at local restaurants that are participating in the program. The program had a slower start because a lot of the restaurants I think the best way to put it is that they had a lot on their plates at the moment, and so it was difficult getting in touch with them and getting them signed up for the program. But now we have 5 different restaurants signed up for the program. They are 250 Barbecue, Banana Blossom Bistro, Dumb's Pizza and Subs, Geppetto, and Riviera Tapas Bar. And yes, there is a link now through either the social media for the town and also through the town website where anybody looking to purchase food from our local restaurants can find a gift card and get an additional 20% of purchasing power. We had 6, just to give a snapshot of where we are right now. We had 6 purchases over the weekend from customers looking to participate in this program. The food forest has been constructed and vegetables have been planted. I'm going to try to share my screen here so that I can show you some of the photos from this. There we go. This works. Yeah, so this is a very close photo, but there's 4 different garden areas. The garden areas consist of a fence, a 15 by 15 foot square fence that'll include a roof that there will be to keep out the rodents and the critters in the area, like deer. And there's 4 by 4 foot, 16 4 by 4 foot beds total, but each 15 by 15 garden fenced area has 4 garden beds. All of the garden beds have soil and are now filled with vegetables. I believe the vegetables include peppers, tomatoes, squash, cucumber, beans, and a few others. And so, yes, we are very excited to have the volunteers help us keep these vegetables alive and help them prosper. We've installed a sink on the side of the Boys and Girls Club to help with washing of vegetables and also through watering of the plants. We've also got a hose bib set up there. we are converting the front of the Boys and Girls Club. There's a small vestibule area in the front. We're converting that to a makeshift tool shed, as it were, so that volunteers who are interested in helping will be able to enter, and they will be able to have hand tools and gloves and things of that nature in the Boys and Girls Club there. So yes, we're very excited to see this program grow, and I can't wait to reach out to the volunteers and help them get started.
Thank you, Mr. Chilton. I have a question about the restaurant program, restaurant
Yes.
gift card program. Has there been any outreach to the restaurants on Kenilworth Avenue? And so there's a Riverdale Plaza, and there are restaurants, several restaurants over there. Has there been any outreach to them for being part of this program?
Yes, we've reached out to every restaurant that had a business license in town.
Okay.
And so yes, I've had a lot of restaurants. It's been interesting. I've had a lot of restaurants tell me that they're interested, but obviously throw out their this busy time for them and trying to figure out how they're going to stay afloat. Some of them have not signed up fully yet, so they've begun signing up. They told me that they're interested.
Okay.
But they haven't signed up fully.
Okay, thank you. Are there council or public questions for Mr. Chilton?
Mr. Mayor, this is Ryan McAllister. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quick comment about the, I guess it's called a food forest.
Yes.
Ryan, thanks for explaining that. I had seen these being constructed. I guess two questions. One was, I missed the first part in your presentation, Ryan, about I guess the common goal for this, what it was going to serve, or who was operating it. Is this a town function, or is this something with the schools?
Yes, so originally this area had been designated for a community garden where we would rent out beds to residents who were wishing to plant food. But because of the pandemic, we thought it would be better to repurpose this area as a food forest. And a food forest, by definition, is an area where well, in this case, the town is going to be one planting and purchasing all the vegetable plants, and any resident who is in need would be able to come and pick the plants and be able to feed themselves.
Okay. Yeah, I had seen these in construction. I appreciate the town's effort in this. I guess my question, the reason why I wanted to speak up was because there's nothing out there that says what it is or what's going on. So I didn't know if there's going to be any information, just like a little sign or something that tells what it is. And then my other question would be, I guess, security of it. You know, it is in the park across the street. You know, just with summer, kids are out of school. Want to make sure nothing gets vandalized. You had mentioned a tool shed, some options there to make sure it doesn't become vandalized. So.
Yes. So the fences were just finished pretty recently, I believe, over the last couple of days. So we will be putting up signs very shortly. I know Administrative Services and I have been speaking about what kind of signage we need to put up in the list of rules and things like that that we're going to include in the food forest here. As far as the security of the tools, we are putting a door lock on the Boys and Girls Club, and we're installing a second door so that it'll be just specifically for the tool shed portion of the Boys and Girls Club. But all volunteers will be able to receive a key that will allow them access to the tool section of the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. And volunteers, like, could I sign up with the town, or is this for volunteers that will be looking to harvest from this?
Anybody who's looking to help with the plants and just help them grow could be a volunteer. So yes, you'd be welcome to be a volunteer. Not everybody who needs the food would necessarily need to be signing up as a volunteer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ryan, this is Karen McAllister. If I could ask you a quick question. The restaurant program you mentioned, so is the sort of gist of it that the town is pitching in 20% so people can stretch their dollars a little more?
That's right. Yes, we know that the restaurants are struggling right now, and because of everything going on with the pandemic, and it's difficult to bring customers in. So this program in particular is designed to give people an additional 20% when purchasing at local restaurants. So if you follow the link on the website for Carryout Cash, you will be taken to a site where you can get a $25 gift card, and then just by agreeing to get the gift card, you'll get the $25 gift card, and then you'll also get an additional 5%, because that will be 20% in this case. We also have different levels. You could get a $50 card, and then you would receive an additional $10 card, which would just give you $60 to purchase at the local restaurants.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. This is different than the Greater Riverdale Cares, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
The idea is sort of twofold. One is to help out residents by making the food at the restaurants cheaper, and another one is to encourage residents to eat at town restaurants. Since these only work at the restaurants that are a part of the program, then we're encouraging people to eat in town and not go to our neighboring communities. Are there council questions or other public questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please do.
Mr. Chelton, in your time working over at this location and planning and doing the modifications to the old Boys and Girls Club, what are your thoughts in terms of continued use, future use, anything of that nature for that property?
For the Boys and Girls Club property in general, in total.
Yeah.
I know that we'd like to expand the food forest to include fruit trees and things of that nature. So I know that that's kind of the more medium-term goal for the front of the property. But for the property itself, I have not spoken with John or anybody about potential uses for that property yet.
Okay. I mean, the square footage of this lot is how much?
I don't know that offhand. I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
If I
all
may.
right. Well, the reason. Sure, go ahead.
No, we had just talked about this in the past, and there is space in the rear. I had read something previously that we're waiting for participation from naturalists from the University of Maryland about the planting of fruit trees as well. Is that a future plan for that, Mr. Shelton?
Yes, we'd like to have some fruit trees to add to our food forest. Right now, it's only consisting of vegetable plants.
Yeah.
But we'd like to.
No, I would just like to see this space evolve through time. Councilman Langwell, you and I have talked about a gardening community evolving in this town, and I think this is a great place where that can occur. I would also like to see this initiative try eventually to spread. So I'd hope to see satellite gardens throughout the community. And my hope was always to try and raise funds gardening community where we could encourage those people that love to get their hands dirty to do so, but then utilize the produce to make sure that we can meet the needs of food insecurity in the town. So that's where I would love to see this initiative go.
Yeah,
Councilman,
I'm
Councilman Lingo, to answer your technical question, it's about 0.35 acres. There are two lots there.
Pardon me?
0.35 acres, approximately.
So it's roughly a little over a third of an acre.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Councilmember Foe, yeah, I know we've discussed this. I think really what I was asking of Mr. Chelton is, in terms of looking at the current structure there of the Boys and Girls Club, is that something that, based on what they're looking at in terms of the, be it expanding the operation there, modifying it, or however, is this a structure that is it something that is going to be useful? Is it going to outgrow its use? Is that apparent now? Has there been the thought that, perhaps a different type building in that location? in which point then we're then considering doing something as a CIP. As well, I mean, with the advent of, planting fruit trees, there's probably going to be needing some different landscaping involved. I imagine there's some other costs that's going to be involved with that, because I think it's something then, we don't want to be planting trees, fruit-bearing trees, and have the effort go to waste. So, and part of one of the things that we'll probably need to do is think about how about would pollination occur for these fruit-bearing trees.
Yes, so I know that we'd have to take a lot of items into consideration when we expand to fruit trees and perhaps even more additional garden beds. I think for the moment that this site will meet our needs, I don't think it's going to be too small for us. Certainly not for the next couple of years. And I can't imagine we would need to rebuild anything, at least for the Boys and Girls Club building, in order to suit our needs for the food forest here.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that, for the next, anywhere 2 to 4 years, what's there in terms of the Boys and Girls Club, for what projects are going to be done there, that structure is suitable for the time being?
Yes.
Okay, it's not like you're looking at the structure and saying, with the way this is going, this thing is going to need to be modified within 3 years' times or something to that effect.
Not at the moment, no, but we're going to keep a close eye on it as things evolve.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there additional discussion on the update on the Partners in Economic Recovery programs? There's no action needed for this next week, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
So this will not appear on the agenda next week? This is just informative.
Correct.
Okay. Shall we move on to the International Property Maintenance Code if there are no other comments? Okay, let's go on. Is there a staff presentation on this discussion?
There is, yes. I will also be, this is Ryan again, I will also be talking about the International Property Maintenance Code. One moment, I'm going to bring the agenda back up. There we go. Yes, so I have spoken again with our Office of Neighborhood Services about the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and any sorts of amendments that they would recommend based on what they see out in the field. Neighborhood Services officers recommended 2 amendments. The first was in regards to sanitation and the definition thereof. They mentioned that there was often a lot of flexibility in the definition of sanitation in the International Property Maintenance Code. And so they suggested that we add a line saying that that specific items were included in the rubbish definition. Those items include things like household appliances, motor vehicle parts, building materials, furniture, and things like that, that would otherwise not be allowed in somebody's front yard or in the yard for outdoor storage without some sort of exterior containment. The other item that Neighborhood Services wanted us to make an amendment for was an item on firewood. Neighborhood Services mentioned that they had seen that improper storage of firewood had caused a lot of rodent infestation and issues with just infestations of pests in general. And so they wanted to include an item that would define how firewood should be kept outside of a property. And that's the definition provided here under new section 32.10.
Does that complete your presentation?
Yes. Are there any questions?
Council, public, members of the public?
No question at this time, Mr. Mayor.
I just found out that I am in violation of the proposed firewood. I'm only 12 inches off the ground, not 18 inches off the ground. So you're going to make me do some work, Ryan.
I was actually wondering where the 18 inches is, because I'm pretty sure I'm also 12 inches. Well, it's on my back deck, and so it's got that extra space. But I have a couple of logs that I haven't sawed yet. That's part of my exercise program, and I sort of stretched that out. But I could saw them; wouldn't be a big deal.
The neighborhood services officer mentioned that the 18 inches was provided in other property maintenance codes, and so that's why he referenced it here. But we could change it if you deem 12 inches more suitable.
I'll get out there with a ruler on mine and see what it looks like. Mr.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Mr. Lingua, yes.
There is actually one item on 302.1. And again, I see this word coming up, and I kind of wonder what's the definition for it, and that is weeds. One person's weed is another person's flower. I'm just wondering how would that be? How would we go about determining what is a weed and what isn't?
If I could attempt to answer that, Mr. Mayor.
Please do.
So in other jurisdictions that I'm familiar with, sir, this is a common question. And I think a lot of it comes down to good common sense, if you will, from the folks that we're asking to enforce a code. In terms of does something appear as if it's cultivated? So someone intentionally trying to grow something. If that's the case, then I would think we would steer clear. The intent is uncontrolled growth, where things are becoming a nuisance, if you will. Because we mention weeds in other sections of our codes as well. When we're talking about the
even
height.
noxious weeds.
Yes, and noxious weeds are separate. There's a strict prohibition against noxious weeds. So that would be poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. I'm forgetting the name of the one weed that the state has on the list. It'll come to me. So the noxious weeds are separate, but it's really to address if someone has their property that's just uncontrolled growth, and if left to that condition, may cause diminution to neighboring properties. Is what we're trying to get.
So essentially, it's also.
Go ahead.
So like something that's, you're also looking at like, as well as just uncontrolled growth. I mean.
Yes. So if someone has wildflowers, and I think a lot of the situations that may be borderline, it becomes one, an expectation issue with our staff, and two, our overall approach. Before we would address something that may be a cultivated garden, and it's looking like, well, I'm not sure what this is, a knock on the door helps a lot. So I think I think the way staff approach things is how we navigate this. So we won't have a code that addresses every situation, and we won't have a definition that's always perfectly clear. But I think how staff approach this, and if there is a question where it's like, well, I'm not sure, are they trying to grow things this way, or is this just kind of neglect? And if it's neglect and clear case of that, then I think the staff would be able to identify that. And if it's something where they're questioning themselves, they'll go knock on the door, or if we have a number or an email, and reach out to the property owner and say, look, have a question about this, or have a complaint about this, and then try to come to resolution. Ryan,
Okay.
is that consistent with the direction you're going?
Yes, yes. We're going to trust the neighborhood services officers and their instructions. They've done a lot of certifications, from what I understand, on how to judge items like this. And so, yes, I agree with John.
So, Mr. Shelton, if I can ask you, where does a plant like, or a grass, because technically that's what it is, a grass like bamboo fall?
As in regards to whether or not that is a weed, I would say
And so, uncontrolled growth, weed, however you want to approach it.
yes. Well, I know that some people like to have bamboo in their yards, and obviously bamboo can grow rapidly and expand uncontrollably. So I think it would be up to the resident who's growing the bamboo to monitor that bamboo and make sure that it's not spreading out of control, which I know is a tall task for anybody growing bamboo, but that's where I stand on that.
Okay, so it would be up to the homeowner to make sure that the bamboo doesn't spread outside of their property.
Yes.
And so
Okay.
if the council wants a prohibition against bamboo as an invasive plant, then that's something that council can consider as well.
Well, it's non-native, that's for sure. I mean, in the terms that we define things as being native or non-native, I mean, in the way that it's being referred to in legislation and other things. I don't believe bamboo is native to the state of Maryland or the East Coast of the United States.
Agreed.
There are many
This is
things
something
that,
that we can. This is something that we can adjust, address on a future amendment of the IPMC.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
are there additional council or public comments on this, the proposed changes to the International Property Maintenance Code?
I believe Laura has a question.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hello, Laura. Please speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a little input from a resident's point of view regarding what you were just talking about. And I would like, as a resident, for instead of the code or the interpretation of the code being based on how something looks or whether something is judged to be in control or not or cultivated, I'm thinking that I would much prefer some more results-oriented standards be applied to what a person can have in their yard. And one example you did just give was if someone had bamboo in their yard and it spread out of their yard and the neighbor had a problem with that, and it is invasive, it's not native. Some people want to grow it so they can give it to the National Zoo and the pandas can eat it. I don't think this is about banning non-native plants, but I do think it could be about outcomes and results of what plants do. Someone earlier, I think, mentioned about, value of homes. Well, I think aesthetics are very, very difficult, I think, to regulate. And I really don't want to see the town regulate the aesthetics and the differences people might have with aesthetics. But when it comes to damaging a home, plants growing on a home that can damage the home and their historic homes, that's more of a concrete criteria for determining that there might be a problem with the vegetative growth that you have in your yard, or if there are dangerous animals living in that or vermin living in it. Ivy that spreads all over the ground, which is also not native, is a harbor, just like that firewood example, is a harbor for rodents. I don't even think people realize that. But to me, those kinds of criteria, I would like to see applied to any kind of regulation or even council action over decisions on what plants are okay, or to me, it's more about the impact of those plants. So that's just all I wanted to express at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Katz.
Sure.
Are there additional council or public comments on these proposed changes to the exterior property area section of the IPMC? Okay, we have minutes to review. Are there items of new business this evening that we need to discuss?
Yeah, I have one. I really want to take this opportunity to say to staff, thank you for your efforts. And I'm not just providing lip service. I do that with action. It's why I'm here, and it's why I show up every meeting that I possibly can. I was lucky enough to come into a council that had Councilwoman Dixon to my left, Councilman Lingua to my right, and the mayor to my right. And I just want to say that they established a precedent of getting your butt to meetings. And I'm sorry if this comes off as emotional right now, but you just listen and you listen and you listen, and you want to respond as powerfully and effectively as you can, but sometimes anger gets in the way. I learned very early on that attending work sessions, that being here consistently was the only way to have my voice heard. And I've mentioned this in the past, but I think one of our biggest problems as a council is lack of attendance in work sessions. Now, I don't even know what it is that I'm asking here. I think I do. I think we should consider some kind of rule designating mandatory attention at work sessions. This is where you learn the agenda. This is where you read everything. This is where you get your points heard. What we are dealing with as a council is this fractious debate that occurs only at occasional meetings. We function effectively as a council at all other meetings. So I just would like to put before the council and staff that maybe it is time to consider mandatory attendance at work sessions so we can have our voices effectively heard and our knowledge base can grow based upon the efforts of staff. Because again, I see your work. And I just want to make sure that we are doing the best for our community and our staff that gives of themselves so freely. So I don't know what this looks like. I don't know if other municipalities do this, but I know I am my better self when I am attending these work sessions. So I just wanted to speak my mind. I wanted to say that, and I just wanted to say thank you for the work that you do, genuinely. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilman. It's actually wouldn't be that difficult. I believe it would require an amendment to the small amendment to the charter. The charter already says that a council member who misses 3 consecutive regularly scheduled meetings of the council is unexcused, is removed from the council. They lose their seat. And so that could be clarified, perhaps through an ordinance, perhaps through a charter change to include work sessions as well as the legislative sessions. One way that other councils deal with this, I know this is true, I'm not positive about Hyattsville, I'm pretty sure this is true in College Park, is that they have weekly legislative meetings. So it's not, they don't have work sessions and then a legislative session. They meet every week and have a legislative session every single week. And I can say that we were having that during parts of March and April, and it was pretty brutal, but that's another direction we could go. That's, of course, a more substantial charter change and change of duties for the council. But those are both ways we could handle it.
Thank you. I look forward to talking with you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other items of new business?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Mhm.
I don't think this is so much, well, technically this isn't really new business, but it may fall into that in part of it. 2 weeks ago, I sent to you and the town manager an image of the paper road that is Lafayette Avenue that is currently been fully enclosed. This is the section that comes off of Madison, the 4600 block of Madison, and connects up to Lafayette as it enters into Edmonston. This is a area that we have been on before on several, be it public safety walks, community walks of the sort over the years, of which the issue has been brought up regarding the encroachment of properties on both sides of it. One being the house at 4600 Madison, and the other being the John's Auto Body on Madison. And at this point now, the public right-of-way there, the paper road, is now fully enclosed, and it's marked as no trespassing. As I think this is something that, as a town, need to be able to make sure that we delineate and maintain stewardship over paper roads in town, lest over time, if this goes unacknowledged, this closure, it will allow someone to file a claim to that area. At which point then we're getting into something that we probably didn't need to deal with in the first place.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please do.
Yes, council member. First, thank you for sending that photo and pointing that out. Ms. Lewis and I have talked about this area as well as other areas where the town has paper roads that adjoining property owners are encroaching upon. And it's something that the town does need to get a handle on. I fear that some of the encroachment goes back many years. And so that's on our list of ways to solve these types of issues. I know that I've had a conversation with my counterpart from Edmonston about the area on Lafayette Place, I believe that they call that in Edmonston, that comes up to Madison there. So we have talked in the last several months about options in that area. And so Ms. Lewis and I will be discussing over the course of the summer of a plan for how the town can address these situations, as well as specifically how we can address that area. And whether or not the town would like to see the road open there. I mean, there's a lot of considerations that would come into play, whether or not we actually improve an area and take it out to Lafayette Place. And that would connect those industrial the commercial or industrial uses there to an industrial area. And perhaps truck traffic then could be routed out through that area, as opposed to having to come through our residential neighborhoods. So there's a lot of pieces to this, but it's something that that staff are looking at. I'm glad that you sent me that picture, and are thankful for that. And we'll be putting together some ideas and concepts to run by the council.
Okay, thank you. Another item, that's really the only new business item I had, Mr. Mayor. There is, it seems, one unfinished business item I would like to bring up,
Yes.
but only when we get to that point.
Okay. Are there other items of new business? Let's go on to unfinished business then.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
It seems we might be back to square one with how Bates is going about doing its job collecting trash in town. I know yourself as well as Mr. Lustician, I believe Director Lewis received a letter from a resident on Nicholson about the recent, actually over the past few months, but culminating in a new low in performance by Bates in terms of their duty to properly pick up trash in our communities. As we have discussed this before, that we're in such a position that we're essentially having to engage in this arrangement with Bates due to really the lack of other choices, affordable choices to us for trash pickup, short of us looking at a recommitment to doing it ourselves, which again would be a considerable amount of money to do. I think this really also, as we look to try and see what the alternatives are in the future, one of the things that we may need to also consider is how do we, as a town on a whole, approach waste management in terms of what we as residents and businesses are putting out to be picked up as waste, and how we can find ways to reduce it. So.
Well, hold on.
And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I think that I haven't had a chance to read the letter. I saw that it's waiting in my inbox, but I haven't read it yet. I'm pretty sure I know at least the gist of what it says. And presumably Bates will either clean up or be faced by liquidated damages and make themselves even more affordable by not getting income that they would otherwise be due. And so I think we'll be seeing that. And I think the issue of how we move forward with trash collection is still very much wide open. I think at this time, with staff resources stretched thin by response to COVID, we don't necessarily want to go there now, but we have a 4-month window anytime we want to terminate the contract. And so we can do research and moving in that direction if we want to.
Okay.
And if I might ask one more question, I think that either Mr. Lustician or Ms. Lewis might respond to this. What is the status of bulk trash? I know that there are some constituents who are unhappy because they ended up as number 21 and higher on the list for bulk trash pickup. And so I was just curious about what progress we'd had in discussions with Bates on that.
Yes, so Ms. Lewis and I met virtually with Mr. Bates, I think last Thursday or Friday. It's within the last few days. And so Bates anticipates throughout this summer having this same schedule. I think they're having staffing issues related to COVID. And at least that's my impression. And so the town has looked at whether or not we are able to restart our bulk trash drop-off. Right now, we have a number of staff who are out, and So we're not able to kickstart that this week. But as we get updates on staff and their return, that's certainly something that we're looking to do to supplement or augment Bates's pickup to restart our drop-off. But that may be a few weeks.
Okay. Are we being nice to Bates about the bulk trash and their staffing issues, or are we collecting damages for that?
I don't see us collecting damages for that. Ms. Lewis, if you want to jump in on that. So I would say
we literally don't have a liquidated damage category for this issue, especially. We could certainly understand it within the context of the pandemic and a lot of people being at home and doing a lot of clearing. And so what we heard from Mr. Bates was that if not for this limit through September 1, they would be overwhelmed with collecting bulk trash.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seemed reasonable under the circumstance. Again, if and when DPW could get back online with the once a month drop off, that would certainly help. In as much as residents can take bulk trash items to county facilities. The county established multiple drop-off locations once it reopened or restarted bulk trash. So that's an option we didn't have before. Everyone had to go to the landfill in Largo. So I don't know what level of complaints we've heard about this, but Bates is picking up. I don't know how many we would get, and Jessica, jump in if you recall. I don't know that we got more than 20, that much more than 20 residents calling for bulk trash on any week. So I don't think it's an extreme measure. And then I think it makes sense within this environment of COVID and just a number of people that are purging.
Okay. Do you know what a typical number of bulk trash pickups was pre-COVID?
Well, that's what I was asking. I could probably pull it up. I would think 25 maybe. I don't know if it's been as many as 30 on a weekly basis. We do limit the number of items that can be set out at one time to 3. And that's increased under the new contract from 2. And I don't, well, I don't see a lot of big items. In fact, I was surprised to read Bates sent out a notice actually today, an update on this interim policy. And they now have a category of small bulk items. And there were as many small bulk items on this list as large ones. So it's just a matter of getting through this reopening period, I think, and September 1 seems reasonable to me.
Okay. Any other council comments on this item of unfinished business? Any other items of unfinished business?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, please.
I just would like to comment regarding the trash situation, that even if Bates gave exemplary service, I think the town needs to look more long-term at waste reduction, because I think the future holds for us that trash is going to get more and more expensive to get rid of as landfills close. We run out of places to put stuff. So changing the paradigm of the town on to reduce waste, I think, is in the town's best interest in the long term.
Sure.
Ironically, even this bulk pickup, I have out on my street right now, there are some items that I think are donatable, but Bates will be picking them up. And I think that some maybe education, I don't know what needs to be done strategically to change that paradigm and help the town as a whole reduce its waste. Composting obviously is another solution. So this fits in line very much with the Sustainability Committee, and I think this is something, if there's any kind of strategic planning that could help the town, I think maybe there would be folks on the sustainability committee that would be interested in helping with that. We also have the University of Maryland. Maybe that's a project or one of those capstone projects as well, to help us plan more strategically for waste reduction in the future.
Okay. I completely
Thank
agree.
you much,
And
Ms.
Agreed.
there's been a lot of discussion, and including with Mr. Bates, about people who throw out a lot of things that look to him like they're recyclable. And so I think encouraging more recycling. But I'm just, and I understand that that they are struggling, as everyone. I don't know how anybody else finds any time to do anything besides their usual day job, but I understand that some people do, and they have been cleaning out their houses, and so I understand that they might be overwhelmed. It just 20 just sounds like a low number to me. I'm surprised it's that low. With 1,000 households, that only 20 are putting out on average are putting out bulky trash. Seems low, but I could guess it's possible.
Sure, if I may, I think it has to do with their entire service area and just the level of bulk trash that they'd have to process coming out of the stay-at-home order. So certainly it seems reasonable. 1,000 homes won't generate that much bulk trash, but across their service area, which amazingly continues to grow. And I'm just saying, it's sometimes too big is too big, and you need to know where their optimal place is. But I just get the sense that throughout their service area, if they didn't limit it, they would be overwhelmed, spending more than a day collecting bulk trash.
Okay, well, as long as we're being treated fairly, Ms. Katz, yes?
I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis, I don't even know if this is something you could do, but even just partnering with Community Forklift and somehow connecting them to Bates, there may be a way for a win-win for Forklift to come, because they have a truck to pick up things. And if there's some way that we can connect the dots, we might be able to address at least some of the overflow issue. I know that there's at least one person in town that couldn't get their bulk pickup when they wanted to, because the 20 people already were signed up for this week. And I know that from the listserv. That's just one person. Doesn't mean there's a ton of people, but definitely we're more than 20 people this coming week. So,
sure. Actually, I just learned today that Community Forklift might do some pickups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought drop-off was all that they offer. So I certainly don't map out to them to see what they're capable of doing.
They have actually a very robust about donating materials and how they can be called to pick up. Might be as easy as taking a picture and emailing it to them and say, hey guys, here it is. I don't know. But like if you go to the Community Forklift website, they have a wonderful lot of information about the donating process.
Yeah, I've donated there, and I'm happy to hear that they got maybe
they
not.
Also still have, yes, I mean it's a win-win. It's a win-win for them if it's materials that other people can have use with.
Absolutely.
They also have bike racks right now. They've had bike racks for a while, and just to let you know, at one point you guys are going to put bike racks in front of Town Hall, or a bike rack in front of Town Hall.
That's right. That's right.
5 blocks, boom, bike rack. Just saying.
Always self-serving, Miss Cat.
You think I got nothing else to do? Just like you guys. I know you guys, everyone here, the staff and the council, you guys spend a lot of time doing this, and I appreciate it, certainly as a resident. But yeah, it's a team effort, right? It's a team effort, residents, council, staff. Got to do it.
Okay, are we done talking tonight, or is there more to discuss?
Yeah, the McAllister second Ms. Cass's motion for a bike rack in front of Town Hall.
Duly noted.
Oh, I'll make that next week.
Now my constituents are coming, Ivy. We need a bike rack.
But there's one for $5 down at Community Forklift.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd even drop it off while they were coming by to pick up other stuff.
Well, we appreciate the ones right there by the Mark station, the new ones that are along, I believe it's in front of Banana Blossom Bistro, the blue ones that were put in recently, I believe last year. We just had a quick comment on the trash pickup. I had a clarification question. We have been doing the yard waste. I called Bates and they said that that service had been terminated, which was included with the regular pickup. And then they told me within a couple weeks that that was going to resume. Does anybody have any idea what's going on with yard waste pickup?
Actually, they didn't discontinue yard waste at any point. Under the new contract, they moved it to Mondays. That's the date that they collected from jurisdictions surrounding us. But that information was incorrect. We spoke with them recently about creating a very simple guide. Their customer service representatives don't always have up-to-date information. And if you would have gotten someone else, they may have told you that collection's on Monday for yard waste. And there is no limit to what residents can set out in terms of yard waste. So that's actually not correct.
All right. Well, I can guarantee you that the yard waste was picked up at least 4 times last month. It went directly in the same trash as the containers. And the lady on the
yeah, in that meeting we had just last week, we raised that with Bates.
Okay.
And we were told was that they're going to discontinue the process. The county doesn't permit the mixing of yard waste and trash.
Okay, so all right, so Bates is going to discontinue mixing of those.
They have committed to doing so. So if it's that, please report it to me.
Okay.
Directly for follow-up with Bates.
Okay. And then is there any intent, 'cause I know College Park and I believe University Park both have yard waste pickups and compost programs. And then like College Park will actually deliver compost waste to your house. Does the town have any interest in doing that, or has that ever been considered?
I can speak to that, Mayor. Ivy, do you want me to speak to that, or?
If your team has discussed that, because I've not had conversations about that.
Certainly. So Ryan, what I can share with you, is the University of Maryland did a feasibility study for a composting program a couple of semesters ago. Our most recent Sustainable Maryland application. And they did a survey. They put out a survey. Perhaps you didn't see it. I took the survey. I think this was in 2018. So there are some options for composting. At this time, I believe that there's nothing that's within budget for the town to actually do. And Mr. Lustician, please correct me if I'm getting that wrong, but that's my recollection. But that is something that the Sustainability Committee has an interest in. And like you said, College Park has got a actually very affordable process in place where people can take their scraps. There's other places that accept scraps. And if you're interested in that, man, we would love to have help in maybe proposing what would be affordable for the town. Obviously, outreach would be an aspect of that as well. But it is something that has been looked at and hasn't really been resolved yet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to help and look at that. I think even partnering with College Park, or maybe they become the drop-off and the turning point for that, or some kind of MOU to do that, or something. I'd hate to, be putting all that. I know the county doesn't. What the benefit of it was is that that's coming back to the residents. So some kind of expansion of services or joint agreement with College Park was my thought of why.
Certainly, but what the survey showed, and I can get with you and show you the actual report from the Capstone project from the University of Maryland students. The survey showed that not all residents are willing to do the same thing for composting. Some want to compost in their yard, some are willing to pay, some aren't willing to pay. So it's hard to find something that would meet all needs at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be happy to talk with you about that,
Sure.
Laura. I think Ivy, for the town's point of view, though, just to make sure that, Bates is picking that up, so it's clear. And then the other issue we were talking about was just general communication with Bates and the trash pickup. A lot of municipalities, when they don't pick something up, there's usually a big orange or yellow sticker slapped on there. It's got a bunch of check boxes that communicate back to the resident why it wasn't picked up or what the issue is. There's really no communication I can see right now for why things aren't picked up. I imagine that generates a lot of phone calls and discussions, and eventually what it's turning into, what I'm seeing is that a lot of the trash just end up putting in the trash bins because there's not really an effective tool to communicate what needs to happen with the resident and what they're doing. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is the outreach, really, if we're going to continue to use Bates or whoever's going to be doing that. Even if that's the town stepping in, one of the municipalities I work with, there was a liaison between the public works staff as well as Bates, so that when there was a call or an issue, really someone from the town started first, and they would make note of those things and then transmit that back to Bates and work out those issues. Or the town would step in and say, hey, yeah, this is why it wasn't picked up. And then that way it was a liaison between the two. So it wasn't that the homeowners were getting caught in the middle. The town could see the issues, they could inspect the issues and be a part of that discussion, so that residents then also knew what really was supposed to be happening directly from the town, and what the town's contract was getting communicated back to the residents as well.
Ryan, about under this new contract, we had an intern design some very user-friendly notification tags for just that purpose. And within the last 2 weeks, so there was one dealing with yard waste, bulk trash, and proper set out. And within the last 2 weeks, we created a new form that it actually allows for information to be added. The other ones were sort of set. It had to fall within one of those categories. And we decided to make it more flexible so that the hauler or the route monitor can write in the problem. Bates hired someone or transferred someone from their Anne Arundel office who started in town as a route monitor about a month ago. That person has actually increased use of those notification tags over the last month. Initially, town staff, sort of took the lead for Bates in identifying problems and utilizing those tags. We probably have slacked off admittedly. Certainly during COVID, I could certainly staff, because we all have the tags in our vehicles. Mm-hmm. And when we spot something, we could actually make note of it through those tags. And so I will ask the staff to be a little more vigilant in noticing improper styles and actually using those tags to supplement what Bates is doing.
Ms. Lewis, would language be a barrier at all with these tags?
Well, that's why the ones we created initially were very graphic.
Oh, cool.
It's all pretty self-explanatory. Just didn't cover all issues. We didn't have, we don't have one for recycling. And we get those calls, though we're not responsible for recycling through our Bates contract, the county is. But we'd like to educate residents as well about a proper or improper set out of recycling.
I think the town crier is very clear each and every month, which and it makes me worry that's not being effective. If they have to, it has to be that demonstrative each month. Mm-hmm. Communication is still a challenge.
I've got to jump in on this. This is Karen McAllister. I'm sorry, it's after 10. I know everyone wants to go home, but that is one of my biggest pet peeves. I walk the streets and I see so many plastic bags in the recycling bins. People don't get it. They don't get it. They need a big red sticker slapped on the recycling bin every week saying, we're not going to pick this up. The county, I would urge you to urge the county to do this. And then maybe people will get the message. They're not getting it in the crier. They need a big red sticker saying, we're not going to pick this up because you have plastic bags, and make it in a couple different languages. We got to do something different. Thank you.
You know, we heard recently that white bags are acceptable. We didn't want to confuse the public, so we didn't want to sort of put that out there after hearing from Bates that is acceptable. And so I guess the practice of collecting it is reinforcing that it must be okay. It's, again, trash collection. It is a lot more complicated than I would have ever imagined.
And not to continue this conversation, but waste reduction
Sure.
there has to be a motivating, for people to comply, there's got to be a motivating factor. And so a strategic plan for waste reduction might, and bringing in some expertise perhaps on this. I went to a thing about waste reduction. There's some places that charge you for your garbage bags, just like the leaf bags. So there's other avenues maybe that we can explore strategically for this in the bigger picture. Because the goal here is getting to zero waste. I mean, it's not going to happen, but we need to move in that direction. I don't think we're moving in any direction. We're just up and down. But thank you for bringing this topic up. I appreciate the town. We've had a lot of challenges with Bates and the council as well. And you guys, you're getting the job done. We're getting our trash picked up, because if that stopped, that would be, that would be very upsetting for a lot of residents. It would take all your attention, and we don't want it to take all your attention. So it's kind of like that fuel tank that you had removed. It's a risky thing. Waste is a risky thing. And if we can make it smaller and go away, maybe it, even if it goes south, it won't take as much of your attention or our funding.
Hear, hear.
Okay,
You're
are we ready
welcome,
to go
Ms.
home? Or is there anything else to discuss? 10, 9,
Too long.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go home. Well,
Be well, everyone.
let's leave the meeting.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you all.